Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and if you're part of my newsletter, I did put a link in for a free pattern. And the free pattern is this cute little envelope from the Fat Quarter Shop. Now, I printed mine out in black and white. The reason is I am not using their color selection. I'm going to use my own. And having it printed in black and white, I don't see the colors. I can see the values of the color. What's dark compared to the light. I can see if we have patterns, but I can't see the colors, which gives me a better idea on how I'm going to use my colors. Once you've printed them out in black and white and you're looking at it for a while, you do sort of forget the original color. So this kind of clears the slate on what you can use. Now this is not a big project. It's 20 by 24 inches, so it's a perfect little size for our tablet, just to sit for an accent piece on our computer desk, use it for our tablet. I think it's just going to be a fun little piece to have. And because it's small, we're going to be able to use up some leftovers. And some of these pieces are big, so we're going to use up some big pieces. So I'll share with you how I like to lay out my fabric before I cut it. It's sort of my decision time. Here are some fabrics that I've chosen to make the project with. I'm not going to use them all, but by looking at this pattern, I do need a background fabric. So I choose somewhat of a background fabric. This is one that I think I'm going to want. This area where there is a heart, I do want to use the fabric with the writing on it. After all, it is the letter inside. So that's the first thing I put on top, because these are the two things that I definitely want to use. The next one that I want to work around is this check. And I do want that in the bottom. So far, I know this goes together. From here, I need that inside fabric. And that's where I'll take time and go through and try to make a decision. This I think is too light. This is just too bland. Those little pink hearts I really think are going to have enough contrast. And I'm going to change that background fabric to something with a little bit more of a pattern on it. This was just plain white. I'm happy with the way this looks. I like the background, and I do keep that main piece that I want. I can at this point even decide on a binding. I like the blue that pulls in there. So I'm going to use that as the binding. Now that I have this laid out, I'm going to cut my fabrics. For a small project like this, I do like to lay them out. Once again, this gives me an idea on how it's going to look. I do have the words on that heart. So I did do a little bit of a fussy cut. I did cut out that first large piece, and the words are going in this direction. So I want to make sure that the next piece, that the words are going in the same direction, and that the lines are at least close enough that they're going to look like they're matching. So I'll cut out the big piece first, and then the second piece, I kind of fussy cut that, so that when they are sewn together, it will quickly look like a continuous line. Once I have my pieces cut out, I will then go in and sort of match up pieces that I can. Now I can take this to the machine and start sewing it. When I'm ready to sew, I do like to be set up. I find if I am set up and I have everything in the right place, then I'm less apt to make mistakes. And the last thing I want to do is do that reverse sewing. Not that I have never had to, but I try to avoid it. And by doing that, I do like to have everything sort of organized before I get to the machine. I have my pieces cut, and this is just a piece of stretch canvas that you can get at a craft and hobby store. I like a nice big one, and that way I can put all of my fabrics on it. I have it laid out sort of the way my pattern is going to look. And I do have my pattern so that I'm able to glance at it. I have a little iron, and I'm set to go with my tools and my machine. I find it doesn't matter what space I'm in, as long as I have my key points, then I'm more organized. I'm able to sew quicker and make less mistakes. And I always start with a little scrap of fabric right at the beginning of my machine. So my first few stitches always go on this scrap of fabric. That way, number one, I know that the machine is good. I can hear it, I can see it. I would rather have anything happen on that scrap than my fabric. And then I will chain piece. So chain piecing is where I'm going to stitch one piece right after another. Then I cut them after. So I've come off that little piece of fabric. Then I can slide my fabric right in and start stitching. I don't have to worry about holding the thread tails. When I pin, I make sure that I pin so I don't have to remove those pins as I go along. I'll remove them after. Just make sure that this is out of the way and do my next. And then I take another scrap of fabric, and once I've stitched off of this, I stitch right onto that fabric. Now I can trim between my pieces. I have my first scrap of fabric, I'll keep it until I come to the end. So these are just a few things that I like to do as I'm sewing. So let me get this done and I'll show you how cute it's going to be. I love the way this turned out, and I do like the way that you really don't see that there is a seam here. So there's the seam right there. And you can see, even though the words don't match, they're close enough that it looks like all one piece. And I have thought of a fun way to quilt this. I'm going to draw some horizontal lines and just do lettering. Maybe I'll do a poem, so all of the words are going to go over the entire thing. So it's going to duplicate this writing. So I can choose my favorite poem or a story or even a letter and just write it and then quilt it, and it'll be there permanently. So I'll have a letter within my letter. So this was a fun little pattern to make, and I think it would look great in many different fabrics. As a matter of fact, I think it would make a great label for the back of a quilt. It's big, it's bold, but boy, it would be a lot of fun. I'll put some links in the description as always. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe and come on back. Let's see what we're working on next time. Bye for now.